I'd like to call the November 1st, 2022 meeting of the Buncombe County Commission to order. Thank you all for being with us this evening. Let's begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise and join us in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I wanted to announce that we have parking validation and bus passes available for any members of the public who used the county's parking deck or public transit to attend the meeting. You can see one of the officers on your way out to have that validated for today only. I want to read the ethics reminder to the board. In accordance with the Code of Ethics adopted by the board, all county commissioners have a duty to obey all applicable laws regarding official actions, to uphold the integrity and independence of the office, to avoid impropriety in the exercise of official duties, to faithfully perform the duties of the office, and to conduct the affairs of the governing board in an open and public manner. Are there any items on the agenda, the outcome of which would have a direct, substantial, and readily identifiable financial impact for any board member? Does any board member have a financial interest in any contract coming before the board today? There being none, all board members have a duty and obligation to vote on any matters voted on by the commission at our meeting this evening. Commissioners, are there any questions about any items on the consent agenda? Do any members of the public have any questions about any items that are on our consent agenda? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda and to follow the remainder of the agenda as published?
So moved.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, great. So we now come to public comment. The time, let me just go over our policy for public comment. Everyone will have up to 3 minutes to address the board. When you're got about 30 seconds left, there'll be an orange light. And when your time's up, you'll get a red light. And we do ask that you discontinue your public comments once your time's up because we want to give everyone the same amount of time. We have a list of folks who signed up who want to speak during public comment. So I'm going to go through the list, and then once we get through it, if there's anybody else who hasn't spoken who wishes to, then there'll be an opportunity to do that. The first person that signed up is Gary Thompson. And if I mispronounce anyone's names, I apologize in advance. I probably will.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity. We live on School Road, which is in Pinners Cove, and we wanted to summarize our concerns about the KLP planned subdivision for Pinners Cove. The clearing of soil and created hard surfaces will increase the runoff from big storms dramatically. It will seriously erode the land and affect the well water. Most drainage will be into Robinson's Creek, which now floods with heavy rain, and it also floods the bridge near School Road. They're planning a raw sewage pipeline over the ridge to connect to the city system. Problems with that could be disastrous. The now quiet cove is rural and farmland. This project will lower the home values and may very well force some farmers to quit. It is estimated that there will be 500 more cars in the area. The major approach roads are already too heavily loaded, Hendersonville and Sweeten Creek roads. Sweeten Creek Road backs up for miles at the Mills Gap intersection. Mills Gap Road is narrow, 2 lanes, in poor condition, no shoulders. The left turn onto Pinners Cove is at the top of a hill, blind to oncoming traffic. No left turn lane and no signal, which is badly needed right now. Pinners Cove Road is narrower than Mills Gap, also in bad condition. Much erosion of the road surface, very curvy, many of them blind. and many blind driveways. No shoulders to escape hitting traffic, which often crosses the center lines. North end of Pinners Cove Road has steep hairpin turns. Another access road is School Road, narrower than the others, and it's also eroded and with no shoulders. We live on School Road on the inside of a blind curve. Many people speed around that curve. Pulling in and out of our driveway is totally blind and dangerous now. With 500 more cars, it could be deadly. Where School Road hairpins into Concord Road at the other end, it's already unsafe, causing traffic to cross the center line, uphill and blind. KLP Kinners East or EAT was turned down by public and your planning board in January, 6-1 against. Now they're using a pseudo-legal method to try and build the subdivision, one that ignores public review and rezoning, conservation easement. A conservation easement is designed to protect the environment, not damage it. Please do what you can to close this loophole.
Person that signed up is Thomas Van Dalsen.
Excellent on the pronunciation, by the way. I know it's difficult. So my comments are for the KLP development as well. Sorry, looking for the light. So honorable commissioners, friends, neighbors, thank you for the opportunity to be heard and speak on our concerns here today. Honestly, and I apologize, my notes are a bit harried. I don't know why we're here today. The matter has already been decided. The laws and the rules and the land use is intact. It remains intact today. This was voted on by the zoning board, your zoning board, by 6-1, as was mentioned. So by all accounts, the matter is decided, and I would argue that we shouldn't have had to do the rezoning fight to begin with. The question, I guess, is at what point and at what monetary level do the laws and ordinances stop applying? I understand that the developer spent $4.7 million, and I hope they did their research on land use and zoning prior to spending that kind of money. If they didn't, lesson learned, better luck next time. I know the feeling. I purchased my first vehicle for $200 cash, didn't have a mechanic look at it. 10 miles later, $600 radiator. I learned my lesson, right? We all make mistakes, we live and we learn. Now, if the developer did their due diligence, it means that they purchased the land under the assumption that they could exert their considerable money and influence to change the laws and sway our elected officials. Hubris, arrogance, or just the confidence which comes with having run this play successfully over and over again. With the rezoning failed, the developer now attempts to use a special conservation easement hillside subdivision zoning rule to place several of the steep slopes on the property in a conservation easement, allowing the project to produce the average slope percentage and exceed the allowed density of the zone without public review. It's a loophole, it's a sham, a clandestine, devious, conniving corruption of the intent of the rule and, frankly, of the word conservation. Allowing the developer to move forward with this loophole is inexcusable. The County of Commissioners must rewrite the zoning ordinance so that the rezoning cannot be bypassed. All major subdivisions consisting of 11 or more homes must have review by the Planning Board, the County Commissioners, and allow for public input. This is a matter of public trust. The concept of public trust relates back to the very origins of democratic government and the seminal ideas that within the public lies the true power and future of society. We place our trust in you, our elected officials. As citizens, as your constituents, and as participants in this public trust, we rely on you and your wisdom.
Sorry, your time's up.
Representing our best interests. Thank you.
Appreciate you coming. Thank you. All right, the next person that signed up is Kathleen Gainey.
Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to speak. This new proposed development by KLP Pinners Eat of 64 homes and 205 townhomes is not much different from the one that Buncombe County Planning Board voted overwhelmingly to disapprove on 24 January. By applying for a conservation easement to overcome the Planning Board's recommended disapproval to gain virtually the same development approval, KLP Pinners is getting a second bite at the apple. And they are doing so in a manner that circumvents both the intent and the purpose of a conservation easement and denies concerned citizens a real voice in the process. This circumvention should not be permitted. We request the Commissioners close the loophole that allows a developer to propose a large development by simply including a conservation easement hillside subdivision, which does not allow for public comment and only requires an administrative review from the Buncombe County Planning and Development Department. Any proposal for a subdivision of more than 11 homes will have an impact on the surrounding communities and should both require a complete planning board review and allow for public comment. The traffic on Pinners Cove Road, Mills Gap Road, and Sweeten Creek Road is already a significant challenge. Add to that the traffic from the already approved developments under construction on Sweeten Creek and soon to be developed. We have a major traffic congestion problem even now before we consider the impacts from this new development. Further, KLP Pinners told the public that they plan to pump the sanitary waste from this development up and over Busby Mountain into the property they purchased on Scarlet Oak Lane, which connects to the Asheville City sewer system. That system supports the Ballantree and Park Avenue communities and Gibbons Estates and is designed solely to support those developments. The system is already under strain. Doubling the current load will almost certainly cause the existing system to fail. In conclusion, deny the end-around development proposal, close the loophole that circumvents the intent of the conservation easement and restricts citizen input, and do not impose additional burden to the already existing traffic and sewage waste problems. Thank you.
All right, thank you. The next person that signed up is Don Yeldon.
Well, I thought I'd have to come by and say hi to you folks because I haven't the last two meetings. But I've enjoyed sitting back there and listening to the citizens talking about wanting to have input into what's going on. And I see on your webpage, oh, get involved in the 25 years from now plan. We want to know what you think. Well, folks, if you want to know what they think, we'll find out. We're going to find out. Because conservation easements being aborted and utilized in this situation. And there's a bond issue that you're going to be voting on next week for $30 million to go to conservation easement. So just think about that when you vote and see if they really want to listen to you. And I don't thank them for listening to me because it's their job, folks. That's what we elect them for, okay? Now, I got a couple of comments. Number one, I saw that we're giving out a little deal for voting. I'm not going to vote but the day of the election. But that little circle, the little kid that drew it, had a great heart. But how many people have asked me, well, what happened to the American flag? Because the American flag in the pledge, you said all people, didn't it? It didn't highlight anybody. It said all. And until we and you, as the elected representative of Buncombe County, treat people as all people, we will not solve the problem. And then I'm going to leave you with a question, and you'll have a little bit of time left over because I'm not going to have to take my full 3 minutes. But I have a serious question. I understand the equity officer is no longer with us as of last Friday. And I know, is that a typical county governmental promotion to get rid of somebody? or was it an option to be relieved or leave? I'd like to know. Let's see if you really want us to know the truth. Dwell on that one a while, and you all know my phone number. Thank you.
All right, thank you. The next person that signed up is Kathy Anders.
Thank you for allowing me to be here. I've never done this, so, your honorable commissioners, I'm not a public speaker. I used to teach first grade, but this is different. I will back up everything everybody's already said. The big construction trucks that will be coming through building these over $300 living places is going to rip this road apart. When they built Poplar Ridge, which is further up, a beautiful neighborhood, but those constructions trucks ripped up our road then, which we are a country road, but we still don't like it to be ripped up. And Robertson Creek, which I live in the Oaks, it has flooded so many times. It flooded major the last time. It went all the way through the Baldwin's farm. It even went to one of the Baldwin's kids' house. We just can't have any more water runoff. And we are a small community, and the traffic has just gotten unreal. I've lived there 35 years, raised 3 children, and the traffic was not bad then, of course, but it was always hard to turn left on Mills Gap to go to Glen Arden. But now, that's impossible. I don't go to Glen Arden, but you would have to turn right and turn around. I mean, it's just impossible on a school morning. Let's see, the creek, I've said that. And another large neighborhood like Poplar Ridge or any large, I'm not Poplar Ridge, I have friends that live there, not do anything to Poplar Ridge. But another large neighborhood on this road is going to destroy this area. When you leave Sweeten Creek, Ingalls and all that, and you turn on Penner's Cove, you feel like you're going out in the country, which is what most people wanted. Our kids played in the, ran around in the yard and played in the field and all that. And of course, the creek took the field. It flooded enough that it washed out our football field. So I think we need to put a stop to this and let's live. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Brad Shore.
Thank you, Commissioners, for allowing me the time to express my concerns for the proposed conservation easement for the hillside subdivision that's being considered on Penner's Cove Road. I've lived the majority of my adult life under the core values of honor, courage, and commitment. I'm a retired Navy senior chief, lifelong resident of North Carolina, and a 19-year resident of Buncombe County, either in the Oaks subdivision or currently on School Road in Buncombe County. I wanted to take the time to educate myself before I came to you guys tonight. I've reviewed the Buncombe County Code of Ordinances, specifically Section 70-68 on the hillside development standards. And I have to admit, I'm more ignorant on the subject now after reading it than I was before I did. This is the only section that I could find that speaks directly about the conservation easement for hillsides. It doesn't help me determine if the code's policy or procedures are being followed. When we did the rezoning vote, I thought it was put to bed, and now it's not. Again, there's a loophole. And I'm asking you, the commissioners, to use the same code that I've did for 26 years in the Navy. Use honor, courage, and commitment, and do the right thing. Look into this to help us determine that policies and procedures are being followed correctly. I'm reaching out to you, my commissioners, to assist me, my fellow neighbors, and all the other residents in Buncombe County. If it's happening in Penner's Cove, it's happened somewhere else in Buncombe County. We're not the only residents fighting over development in our neighborhoods. There is a great need for housing in Buncombe County, but there's even a greater need to ensure we do not overdevelop our communities. What about the current residents now? The sewer, the water, the road improvements, safety at intersections, school buses. We just talked about pumping raw sewage over a mountain to get to the sewer because the land that it's proposed on can't handle it. That doesn't make sense to me, is to allow this to happen. We need a genuine concern right now for doing the right thing, and I ask you to help us do it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next is Joel C. Harder.
Hi, my name's Joel Harder, and I'm here for a different topic. I'm a Chippewa American Indian, and I've been thinking about this for a long time, and I'm really upset with the Buncombe County website. You have nothing on there about Native Americans. The last time you've talked about Native Americans was last year at November 16th. It just upsets me. I looked at your data about recruitment, 0%. You've done nothing. I've applied to several jobs here. I've checked the box for Native American. I've never gotten a call. I'm also very, very upset with how you do your job descriptions. You do not accept a degree. You are gatekeepers, all of you. You should accept a degree and never say you need 1 year of experience. That is a gatekeeper of privilege. Let me tell you this. I'll tell you why. Medical billing position, you require 1 year of experience at a family practice. Now, if you go to the family practice in anywhere in Western North Carolina, they're going to require 3 years, anywhere. So you go to AB Tech, you get your medical billing degree. I can't get a job at the family practice, and I can't get a job at your office. That's privilege. And that's why all the kids are leaving. Now, my experience, I have 20 years in health policy at CMS, working with CMS. That 1 year on that job description blocks me from an interview. You know how that hurts? That I can't apply? So I just want you all to know how this government runs, because no other town does what this town does by putting that you do not accept a degree. It took me 8 years to get my degree. I worked hard. I have a 20-year career. I worked hard. And this town doesn't accept it. And that's because you block it with your job descriptions. And so that I want known. The other piece I want known, your job boards are all out of date. You need enforcement. Why are there jobs out there that when I apply to them, the HR person says they're already filled? Those things should be gone. And then let me tell you the last thing. This living wage program you have is a lie. You go to those companies, you look on their salaries, they're not doing it. They lie. Yet you're giving them privilege by giving them promotion on your website. I know for a fact they're lying.
All right, Joel, appreciate you taking time to share your perspective on those issues. Next person that signed up is Jen Hampton.
Hi. Like you said, my name's Jen Hampton, and I'm here as the co-chair for Asheville Food and Beverage United. And first of all, we would like to thank y'all on behalf of service workers for taking up this issue, for hearing our voices about how the cost of parking is affecting our lives. The Cox Avenue reduced parking program that you are voting on tonight, if it passes, that would cut down on the cost for a lot of workers. And speaking of workers, as we've been talking to them, gathering the survey inputs, they're really excited to know that there are people in places of power that are not only willing to listen to us, but to actually take real life actions to make our lives better. So we appreciate it. And that feeling right there, that we consider that a huge win. That's really big. When we rallied back in September, we rallied for cheaper parking at all public parking lots and decks, and we recognize that this is an awesome first step, but we are going to continue to advocate for that with not only the county, but with the city as well. And we think that we're optimistic about that. Now, Asheville Food and Beverage United is committed to continuing a working relationship with the county and working on building one with the city as well. And we think that working together, we can not only work on the parking issue, but on other issues like expanding transit in the county and finding a more collaborative approach with the city to make the city and county transit cohesive. And we also feel like we could probably work with you on affordable housing, because as the costs are really increasing all the time, as you know, for housing and just to live and work in Asheville, our worker pool is dwindling fast. So if we can address these issues together, I think that it would not only benefit workers, but the community at large, especially if we had transit, you know, out in the county, we could live out there. So anyways, when we work together to find solutions to problems, I think that goes a long way to building community solidarity. And for me, that really is the essence of Asheville. I can't think of anything that is more Asheville than community solidarity. So with that said, I just want to say thanks again, and we look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Jen. The next person on the list is Carly Schwartz.
Hey y'all, I'm here on behalf of AFBU too for the parking issue. I don't have very much to say. I just wanted to say thank you for your support. It's been very refreshing to work with public officials who are actually listening to the community's needs. The survey was really great. I hope y'all got data that helps you make this decision this evening. I just wanted to reiterate that if the Cox Avenue reduced parking passes, that this will help us all feel less stressed parking, to just know that there is a space for us so that we're not going in with our nervous systems heightened into our jobs, having just driven around the city for 30 minutes looking for a spot and then paying for a spot as well. This is gonna reduce the price for me by a third. And everybody, the 150 spaces, if y'all pass this, is basically giving 150 workers a raise, $100 raise a month. And that'll be a really big deal. Also, it will help us all, and I think most importantly, feel more safe, just being able to be a little bit closer to our jobs, those of us that the Cox Avenue deck will affect. And the fact that it's lit there are people around Cox Avenue. We're not gonna have to walk to Cherry Street or into Montford at midnight or 2 a.m. anymore. And lastly, I hope that showing your support for this will have a cascade effect for the city so that they can follow suit to have similar programs in their parking decks and possibly on the street to affect more citizens and workers in town. Thanks, y'all.
All right, thanks, Carly. Next is Liz Button.
Hi, good evening. Liz Button here. I'm speaking on behalf of the Asheville Independent Restaurant Association, which I'm now chair. I just want to let you know that the Asheville Independent Restaurant Association is very much in favor and support of this proposal presented to offer discounted parking. And I can't tell you how much we appreciate that you all have, that you're ascertaining this opportunity for everyone. We also feel that a lottery system would be the best viable option versus a first come, first serve, for obvious reasons. We would also encourage, as was said previously, that our city would work with our county and provide more parking spaces. We would also like to see some other initiatives begun. We're all experiencing reduced staffing, and we're having a hard time getting staffing. So the costs of parking, the cost of childcare, the availability of childcare, the cost of housing, all of these things are playing a role in that. So please start with this first initiative. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Liz. And the last person who signed up is Mike Kennedy. Is Mike here? Oh, hey.
So good evening, Chairman Newman, commissioners, and members of the public. I'm here this evening to speak in opposition to the KLP subdivision slated for Penner's Cove. As the president of the Glen Merrill Homeowners Association, whose members have stood steadfast in opposition to this proposed subdivision, I call on you to use your voices as representatives of the county at large to not allow this development as proposed to move forward. As you have heard before, your planning board by a 6-1 vote denied the initial rezoning request for KLP Penner's. At that point, the developer pulled the request from the county commissioner's review due to the overwhelming negative feedback. We now find that what we can only be called a carefully crafted land use review with the county. The developers agreed to set aside a conservation easement, which was offered in the initial rezoning meetings, but now comes with the caveat that you as our commissioners are not allowed to vote on its approval, and its approval is almost guaranteed. Why didn't the developer invoke this easement loophole from the start? How does that sit with you? How would it sit with you if this type of subdivision were placed in the area where you live with little to no public input? How would it sit with you if the density of your community doubled with no changes to the infrastructure? That's what will happen to us all in Penner's Cove. What will we get for doubling the density of our cove? We already must traverse its busy and deteriorated roads with blind curves, no shoulders, hidden driveways, speeding cars who like the elevation changes and switchbacks for the thrill, ultimate untimely road closures due to stray semis, and abundant wildlife, which sometimes pays the ultimate price. Now you want us to endure an added 2,000 trips per day, as detailed by your traffic study? I'm sure you're keenly aware of the surrounding roads being overburdened, as has been spoken of before. And if this development takes place with little to no infrastructure improvements, I can only assume what's going to happen. Once again, the cart before the horse taxes the residents, both current and future, with what appears to be little to no regard. I simply want to say that as our commissioners, I hope you will listen to those who voted you into office, put yourself in our shoes, make decisions that not only make sense financially for the county, but also make sense for those of us who call these small communities that comprise this county home. Help us stop this development as proposed and give us back our voice. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mike. That is everyone that signed up. Is there anybody else with us this evening who would like to address the board during public comment? Okay, well, I just want to reiterate our appreciation for everyone who took time to come out and share your perspective with the commissioners on these various issues. Okay, the next item on our agenda is under presentations, and we have a proclamation to acknowledge Operation Green Light. And Commissioner Amanda Edwards is going to read and present the proclamation, and Heath Smith from Veterans Services, I believe, is here to receive it. Thanks for being here.
County of Buncombe proclamation for Operation Greenlight. Whereas the residents of Buncombe County have great respect, admiration, and the utmost gratitude for all of the men and women who have selflessly served our country and this community in the armed forces. And whereas the contributions and sacrifices of the people who served in the armed forces have been vital in maintaining the freedoms and way of life enjoyed by our residents. And whereas Buncombe County seeks to honor these individuals who have paid the high price for freedom by placing themselves in harm's way for the good of all. And whereas Buncombe County Veterans Services offers assistance to local veterans, including life insurance, home loans, health care, vocational rehabilitation and training, disability benefits, and more. And whereas Buncombe County is home to the Charles George VA Medical Center, which provides high-quality care for veterans across our region. And whereas veterans continue to serve our community in the American Legion, Veterans of Foreign Wars, religious groups, civil service, and by functioning as county veteran service officers in 29 states to help fellow former service members access more than $52 billion in federal health, disability, and compensation benefits each year. And whereas approximately 200,000 service members transition to civilian communities annually, and whereas an estimated 20% increase of service members will transition to civilian life in the near future. And whereas studies indicate that 44 to 72% of service members experience high levels of stress during transition from military to civilian life. And whereas active military service members transitioning from military service are at high risk for suicide during their first year after military service. And whereas the National Association of Counties encourages all counties, parishes, and boroughs to recognize Operation Greenlight for veterans. And whereas Buncombe County appreciates the sacrifices of our United States military personnel and believes specific recognition should be granted. Now, therefore, with designation as a green light for Veterans County, Buncombe County hereby declares Veterans Day, November 11th, 2022, and the weeks following, a time to salute and honor the sacrifice and service of our men and women in uniform transitioning from active service. And therefore, Buncombe County Board of Commissioners proclaims recognition, Operation Greenlight for veterans, lighting the courthouse green in its honor from November 7th to 13th, and encourages its residents in patriotic tradition to recognize the importance of honoring all those who made immeasurable sacrifices to preserve freedom by displaying a green light in a window of their place of business or residence. Adopted this first day of November and signed by Brownie Newman, Chairman of the Buncombe County Board of Commissioners. Thank you to Heath and to Kevin from Veterans Treatment Court and to every veteran across Buncombe County in the United States for your immeasurable sacrifice and your bravery, and we simply cannot say thank you enough for what you do for us.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Commissioners, County Management. When veterans, or I should say when service members discharge, they come to communities like ours. We've got world-class services here, whether it's the Charles George VA, Veterans Treatment Court, and at the top of that list, you would expect me to say this, but the Buncombe County Veteran Service Office. We've got dedicated staff that every day of their lives give their all for the veterans in this community. So, thank you.
All right, thank you, Heath. Appreciate all that you do and all your team does. And thank you, Commissioner Edwards, for reading that. The behavior of the dog that we just saw here was like, my dog, if you can imagine, the opposite of that behavior is what that is like. Very good. Okay, the next item on our agenda is the presentation on the financial quarterly report for the fourth quarter of FY22, and I think we're also going to do then the first quarter of FY23. And Don Warren, our finance director, is here to present these items.
Yes, I am. Good evening, Commissioners and Chair. So we have our fourth quarter financial report. I'm going to give you some highlights, tell you how we did, give you the recap. Still unaudited. We're still waiting on the final audit report, but figures are pretty good. So I'm going to talk to you about the general fund budget actual for revenues and expenditures, and then our solid waste enterprise fund. So you can see the General fund budget to actual, the total amended budget with appropriated fund balance was $391,305,579. Without the appropriated fund balance, it's $363,796,340. Year-to-date, actuals for revenue was $377,229,119. So we were 103.7% above budget when we exclude appropriations. You can see the various categories and how they came in compared to budget in blue and the gold, which is the prior year. To give you a little more detail, permits and fees came in quite a bit higher. Building permits, inspections, recording fees were higher than anticipated. They just continue to grow. The local option sales tax is the one that I think is just amazing to everybody, is how strong that's still coming in. 5.4 million over the budget. Sales and services, so our net difference of ambulance fees, our occupancy tax collection fee, some Medicaid cost settlement, Medicare COVID vaccine, the parking fees, and then that netted with the decrease in the federal prisoners in that category, we were still $4 million over budget. Unrestricted intergovernmental, which is our Medicaid hold harmless, those are funds that were received that were not anticipated. And then we keep going down, the ad val tax. So we had additional collections over what was actually budgeted of $1.9 million. Our restricted intergovernmental came in under, which is our public health AAs, and we had the COVID vaccine and some COVID response monies that were not spent, or sorry, were not received. And then our investment earnings, because of how interest rates have shot up, that has impacted our unrealized gain on those, and one of the Governmental Accounting Standards Board's requirements at year end is we have to actually recognize that unrealized gain. So we're down on our investment earnings because we have to treat it as if we sold it today, which we never sell. We hold them until maturity, and we get all of our accrued interest over the time, and we get our full principal back. Going on to the expenditure side, total budget, $391,305,000. Actuals was $369,680,000, $369,689,000. I can't even talk now. Such a big number. $369,680,613. So we are at 94.5%. You can see how the function, which is what we budget at, fared compared to budget and compared to last year. We also look at this on the category, which is our salaries and benefits, operating program, capital outlays, debt service, and how those trended compared to the previous year and to budget. And to provide you some more detail, salary and wages came in way under budget. We have a lot of vacant positions in detention, emergency services, 911 operations, social services, libraries. In the operating side, we have travel and training, office expense. A lot of those just came in under budget. Departments didn't use as much as anticipated. Some of the departments that had vacant positions, of course, didn't use those funds. The benefits, which is tied to your salaries and wages. And then our program support, we had unspent funds across economic development, DSS, and pre-K, and direct assistance. We do have carryovers that budget brought to you last month. And we had $5.3 million in actual carryovers, so. To give you a picture of where we're ending the year and an idea of the potential for the fund balance carryover based on projections and the amounts where we sit when we submitted our financials to the auditors, we have about $1.5 million that would be transferred from general fund to the capital projects fund because it's over that 20% policy limit. And then looking at solid waste, their budget was $12.7 million. Without appropriations, it's $11.187. Year-to-date actual was $11,641,069. So they were over budget on the revenues of 104.1. And you can see that sales and services was the leading cause for them to be over budget. Compared to last year, they were a little bit under. So sales and service, that was the net difference of the higher anticipated disposal fees out at the transfer station. We had some miscellaneous revenues which came in higher, which were the renewable energy credits, and then other taxes and licenses that came in higher was scrap tax, scrap tire tax, the white goods tax, and then the solid waste disposal tax. On the expenditure side for solid waste, The budget was 12.7 million, actuals were 11.5 million, so they were only at 90.2% of actual budget. Their biggest cause was the operating, so they had a lot of maintenance and repair dollars, some contract and professional service dollars that they didn't need to spend. They didn't incur the cost to actually repair things that they were thinking they would. And then the salary and benefits, they had a vacant position, and so they had some savings there. They did have a little bit of carryover, but that was only 16,000 going into the next year. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Overall, it's a good year.
Can you speak more to the carry forward amount? You mentioned that there was some that was carried forward. Can you just speak more to that?
Sure. A lot of times at the end of the year, you have things that are in progress, or you just haven't been able to get to them, or things are on order like vehicles and that sort of thing. So I think it was it last meeting or 2 meetings ago that John brought forth the budget amendment for the carryovers from the previous year, which were all of those sort of items. We don't allow people to just carry over money because they have it left. There has to be a legitimate reason. Either it's a contract that hasn't been executed or a product we haven't received yet. So there's a lot of scrutiny that goes into that. But we did have a fair amount of dollars that needed to be carried over.
All right, great presentation, Don. I don't think there's any questions
All right.
on that one.
We'll go to the really easy one then, first quarter. Since it's the first quarter of the year, we would expect revenues and expenditures to be at 25% of budget. But due to the timing of when we receive items, particularly like our ad val taxes and the 3-month lag that we have with sales tax, that's not necessarily the case. So the total amended budget with appropriated fund balance for fiscal year '23 is $406,453,545. Year-to-date actuals is $48,072,656. So we're at 11.8%. Compared to last year, we're up. Last year, we were only at 8.1%, so we're trending a little bit better than last year. On the expenditure side, $406 million is the budget, and we have actuals of $84,152,221. So we were at 20.7% of budget. A lot of this is transfers and stuff that we do at the beginning of the year. So again, it should be at 25% if we were like flat, but it doesn't ever work that way. Contracts and that sort of thing, they actually get spent throughout the year or when a project's done, so we'll see more expenditures as the year progresses. On the expenditures by category, you can see how things are trending. Everything looks okay to me. Everything is where we would expect it to be. And then on solid waste, the budget is $16,119,464. Their year-to-date actuals is only $2,854,464, so they're at 17.6% of budget. The transfer station and landfill operate as a business, so it's totally dependent on use. They're down still a little bit from fiscal year '22, and we're just kind of subject to use, so we don't have much control over that revenue stream. On the expenditure side, 16.1 million is the budget, and then the actuals are 2,440,624, so we're at 15.1% of budget, and everything there is trending well, and there's no concerns at this point. I'll be happy to answer any questions on the first quarter.
I don't see any questions at this time, Don, so we appreciate the updates and report and positive news, so thanks for.
I always bring positive news.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
All right. We do not have any public hearings on the agenda this evening. Ms. Pender, any items from the county manager's report?
Yes, sir. I'll ask Lillian Govas to come present an update on where we are with elections.
Hi there. I'm Lillian Govas. I am presenting in lieu of Corrine Duncan because she's busy right now processing more than 3,000 absentee ballots. So the Board of Elections is meeting right now. They expect to be going to about 9 o'clock tonight with those ballots, and anyone can watch that process live on engage.buncombecounty.org. We're streaming that meeting so everyone can see those ballots being processed. Like I said, we have more than 3,000 absentee ballots that we've received so far. Combined with the more than 41,000 people who have voted, we've got a voter turnout so far of just over 21% of registered voters in Buncombe County. In order to help accommodate all of those voters, we have really staffed up. And so, you know, Election Services has 11 permanent staff in the year, but right now they're growing. So they've added 33 seasonal, 16 rovers. For early voting, we have an additional 160 staff that we bring on. And then for the big day on Tuesday, Election Day, we have more than 500 people working the polls. That doesn't count our volunteers. It also doesn't count all of the other logistics that we have going on at that time, whether it's the moving companies that we utilize to stand up and break down those voting locations, to the traffic control and folks who are standing by in case of IT needs, emergency technical stuff, all of that sort of stuff. We are averaging about 400 voters per hour, which is pretty cool. We're not quite up there with Transylvania and Allegheny counties. Those folks are really voting. We're just right behind them in terms of turnout, but we are ahead of Mecklenburg, Durham, Forsyth County, and Guilford County. What folks need to know is they can early vote today until 7:30, Wednesday from 8 a.m. until 7:30 p.m., Thursday from 8 a.m. until 7:30 p.m., Friday from 8 a.m. until 7:30 p.m. These one-stop early voting locations are great because people can register and vote at the same time. I saw someone do that just today at the Elections Warehouse location. If folks are looking to avoid a wait line, those grow as we get closer to Election Day. Go to buncombecounty.org/vote. We have real-time wait maps there. I will say our Elections Warehouse, the Grant Center, and the new location in Shiloh are three of our most underutilized locations, and so that's where you'll have the least amount of wait. I would like to personally thank my folks in Black Mountain. I was able to go in and out and vote with no wait on Saturday. The other great thing to know about early voting, we do have early voting on Saturday. It closes at 3 p.m. We do not have early voting on Sunday, and we do not have early voting on Monday. On Election Day, people must vote at their polling precinct. They cannot turn in absentee ballots at those polling precincts. Those have to be returned to the elections office or postmarked on that day. We do offer in early voting and on Election Day curbside voting, and this is something else I saw people taking advantage of today, where folks who have limited mobility can just pull up. It'll ring a bell inside the office, and our election staff will come out and help that voter cast their ballot safely. For any other voting data, we encourage folks to go to buncombecounty.org/vote. You can see what voter turnout looks like now compared to 2018. We're slightly behind, but we're picking up momentum. And so we put all of that data right there on buncombecounty.org/vote. That's also where people can check their voter registration, get their sample ballots, so they can cruise in and out of that voting location, whether they choose to vote early between now and Saturday or on Tuesday, Election Day. Voting has gone very smoothly. We've had very few incidents at our polling locations, and we've just had a really great reception and turnout by both our staff and our voters.
Thanks, Lillian. Appreciate it. All right. We do not have any items under old business, so under new business, the affordable downtown parking program for workers in the downtown community. And Tim Love is here to present this item.
Good evening, Commissioners and Chair. This evening, here to talk about the Cox Avenue Affordable Parking Program, which you've now heard me speak about at 2 prior briefings. To get us through this presentation, to get us through my presentation, I have slides. So today we'll talk a little bit about the background and our request of the Commission today. We'll walk through program details and then ultimately next steps. In terms of background, Buncombe County staff presented the Affordable Parking Program to Commissioners at the September 6th briefing. At that briefing, Commission requested additional input from the community, and so staff pulled together a survey which was distributed in the community by a number of our partners, including some of those that are here with us tonight, including Asheville Food and Bev United, AIR, Asheville Downtown Association, and others. That survey brought in over 600 survey responses, with over 66% of folks that completed the survey indicating that they would enroll in the program if given the option. We also received other feedback on that survey, which we'll talk about as we go through. But based on that feedback, county staff have revised the original proposal and bring that before you today. Our request of commission is to approve the resolution regarding the affordable parking program, which is in your packet, and we can talk about that. But additionally, to also make a second motion regarding a change to the fee schedule, which is normally adopted as part of the budgetary process, but needs to be amended if you intend to proceed today. So 2 items on the motion. We'll revisit that in just a second. So in terms of the program details, you've seen much of this information, but just as a reminder to where we started. When staff were before you in September, we proposed 3 options to start, and the first option was to maintain our current process, so no changes. The next was to do a reduced monthly rate across the board, meaning, anyone is eligible, no type of eligibility criteria. The third option was to create a reduced monthly rate that was available for individuals or families of low to moderate income. You often hear us talk about that as related to an AMI. So those were the 3 proposals that we brought to you. Based on the feedback we received from you in briefing, we felt like you were leaning towards the third option, a program for low to moderate income individuals. And so that's what the resolution has been crafted around today. As we move forward into the next slide, the eligibility for this program, staff recommend a program that's available to individuals and not employers. The reasons for that are simple, to provide the most equitable ability for individuals to get access to the program. Additionally, if this is a low to moderate income program, if you approve that this evening, that would be income-based, and because of that would need to be tied to an individual, as many of our health and human services programs are. This program is subject to availability. Things change. Parking is currently available in the deck, but those things could change over time and are subject to availability. Applicants must provide proof of employment and income. So that's a key ingredient that would be validated by our team. The application process, our goal is to make it as easy as possible. A key step in that ingredient is to make it available online using Preferred Parking's website. This is the current process that people use today to apply for parking at our market-based rates. But additionally, we come to a decision point, and we talked about this at the last briefing, but how do we make these parking passes available? And the 2 simple options, one would be a first-come, first-served program. The next would be a lottery-based program. Staff's recommendation is to proceed with a lottery-based program, but we would like some input from commission on that today. The reasoning, again, is about equity. A lottery-based program would feature an application window that allows more people to have an opportunity to apply to the program, as opposed to a first-come, first-served program where the people that are most aware of the program are likely most eligible to apply. So not quite as equitable. And so for that reason, staff recommend a lottery program. I would also add, this program has been developed with input from the survey, but also our partners, many of which we've already mentioned today, but who have kind of advised us, and those again include folks like the Downtown Association, AIR, and others. Future availability, key question. I think new program for us, we're starting kind of small, 150 spots. If we find that there's more bandwidth, what will we do? And so what staff would like to do is maintain a wait list and cycle through that wait list over time as either new passes become available or people no longer need their passes or, new spaces are available. So that's a key ingredient. Additionally, we'd like to have a process to recertify employment every 12 months just to make sure people are still within the income eligibility requirements, still utilizing the passes, things like that. Additionally, because this is a parking program where folks will have individualized passes, we'll be able to see data. And so we'll be able to tell if these parking passes are being utilized, if so, when. And if we see that certain parking passes are being underutilized, we'll have the option to sort of take those passes back. In terms of payment, we're not changing the process for how parking passes are paid for. Payments will go through preferred parking. There's no pass-through. If the individual who has the parking pass makes their payment, they'll continue to have a pass. If they do not, they'll have to take that up with preferred parking, but likely will have their pass rescinded. Additionally, there is a one-time fee for a parking pass. It's nominal, I think $20. Please don't quote me. If you lose the parking pass, you have to pay for a new one. So those are some of the processes that individuals will be responsible for. Once parking passes are approved, folks will pick them up at preferred parking, and generally speaking, the county will not be involved in any of that process. It'll be individual to vendor directly. So that's the proposed program in a nutshell. I would like to pause for a moment and just sit on the decision point for just a minute and to get commission's sense of first come, first serve, or lottery-based system, or maybe something hybrid, preferably not, but if there is, let us know.
I'm supportive of the lottery system that's recommended by staff.
I'm also supportive of the lottery.
Great.
Me too. Yep.
Yes, all of.
Well, thank you all for that decisive decision. What I will say is the lottery process, it will create just a little bit of a additional time delay. You know, we'll open up the lottery for a window of 2 weeks, maybe 3. We'll see how it goes. And then we'll have to go through a process to work through that. If approved, we're still trying to get this program up and running by the end of this calendar year. And so
Will
that'll
you be
our-
picking names out of a hat, or is there some machine
We're-
with balls?
we're gonna
in that you
stream it
will have?
live,
Like, how does this look exactly?
Yep.
Out of curiosity.
We'll go through a vetting process first, once we collect all of the applicants, and then to make sure that they're eligible, and then we'll go through a randomization process to identify that. There will not be any lottery, ping pong balls, much to my chagrin.
Well, I'm still for it, but hoping there might be some ping pong balls in it. So.
All right, so that's our proposed program. Related to that program, I wanted to just, look at numbers again, because we talked about this in our first meeting, but not at the last. So this table, trying to be simple, in the gray, you see scenario, which is current. That's our current environment. That's what we do today. The proposed in blue is what we're talking about in terms of releasing 150 spots at a reduced rate. So both scenarios are the same in terms of numbers of total spaces. There's 664 spaces in the deck. The available for daily, so this is, daily parking. So someone who just, is downtown, wants to drive and pay an hourly rate. This is the number of users or spots that are available for daily use. This is a really important number to us because this is parking garage is funded with debt. We have to make sure that it is always available for a public use. And so that available for daily number can never fall below 214 spots. That's a requirement of our debt. In terms of total spaces for lease, we're currently at about 200. We're proposing moving up to 335 in blue. Our market rate spaces, we currently lease out about 185 spots, which means there's about 15 that haven't been procured by someone. We're saying that stays flat in our proposed environment. Spaces at a reduced rate, we have 0 today at the Cox Avenue deck. We're proposing moving up to 150. That reduced rate would be $40 per month. And then you can see the annual lease revenue, and this is just the revenue from leased spaces, doesn't include daily hourly parking. So you see that there's a slight uptick in revenue where we move from about $188K to about $260K, which is a plus $72K increase by renting out these additional 150 spots. So there is a net increase in revenue. That's a good thing. However, as presented in our first briefing, the other side of this coin is what is the cost of the debt currently? And so I want to make sure that we talk about that. So when we talk cash flow, low to moderate income scenario, again, we have the current and the proposed scenarios here. Our annual debt service doesn't change. It's about $1.276 million per year. There's a management fee associated with that, which is based on revenue brought into the deck, and so it upticks from $20K to about $24K based on that percentage. And then when we take our revenue from our lease revenue and minus out our expenses, so that's just, that total amount of lease spaces, we find that we're about $1 million short on the revenue side. When we take our daily revenue and add that in, that's that far right column, total revenue less expenses, we get to about between negative $889 and negative $820K for the year. And so whereas we are increasing revenue by renting out more spaces, we still see that our debt service exceeds our revenues that we're bringing in from a daily and a lease rate. And so I wanted to make sure that you're aware of that because you're making this decision. However, I would remind you that the purpose of the deck was not necessarily a revenue generation goal when it was initially conceived. Typically, it had been filled with staff at our HHS location in particular. Through the pandemic, we've seen that things have changed in terms of worker commute patterns and things like that. And so now we find ourselves that there's more availability in that deck than used to be, in large part because of less of a staff presence. So perfect time to think about how to repurpose those spaces that are currently unfilled. So with all that said, just wanted to give you the full financial picture. If you have any questions, I'm always glad to talk about that.
And the huge money-losing aspect of this parking deck, I mean, that's the reality. I mean, that was voted on years ago, so nothing we do tonight changes that, except it would actually get a little bit better if we approve it.
That's correct. So those are kind of the numbers I've shared with you, the program itself. As I did in the briefing, wanted to make sure we touched on some other considerations that came up. And, the survey that we mentioned earlier, approximately 600 users completed the survey, brought up a number of topics which I shared at the last briefing and summarized into 5 themes. But what I wanted to make sure we did is we touched on them again. And so, in the survey, the primary concerns we saw were about additional locations as well as security. And so I'm going to talk about those 2 things. So in terms of additional locations, additional spots, things of that nature, our staff continue to recommend that we start with 40 Cox Avenue with 150 spots and analyze that data and come back to commission. Want to start slow because we don't want to make sure that we're exceeding expectations and not the other side of that. Additionally, there's one other deck that Buncombe County owns, and that's the 200 College Street deck adjacent to us. We will take a look and analyze utilization of that deck, but a very different business case in terms of how it's utilized. This deck is primarily used by employees in the 200 College Street building, but also our courthouse. And so we have a lot of activity coming in and out of the courthouse and want to make sure that the folks that need to get access to the courthouse can. That said, we will look at it. We'll bring back some information to look at. In terms of security, this is an important item that we talked about at our last meeting, but wanted to make sure we reiterated it. So the Cox Avenue deck, it's a newer deck, and wanted to reiterate that there's call boxes on all floors. So eight floor deck, 2 call boxes on each floor, one generally located near the elevator. Additionally, there's cameras on all floors, a total of about 65 cameras throughout the deck. And so those are available to preferred parking staff, but also law enforcement. In our current environment, so as of today, parking attendants are available in that deck Monday to Friday from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So that's current environment as of today. We also have a roving attendant that goes throughout the deck during those weekdays, Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. However, based on the feedback we received, we thought it was really important, regardless of the decision the commission makes about the parking program, to change the hours of parking attendance at this deck. And so the changes that we're currently implementing, effective immediately, the hours will extend from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. But additionally, we've requested to staff up so that we can offer 24/7 parking attendant presence at this deck. And so that'll be weekdays and weekends, 24/7. That's what that means. We will have to hire. Our vendor will have to hire, so there will be a little bit of a delay on that. But those are immediate moves that we're taking. But additionally, in terms of extending the hours from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m., that'll happen immediately with no additional staffing required. So just wanted to inform Commission of that, as well as those that are listening and have voiced concerns about security. This will be within the Cox Avenue deck. We'll continue to look at other resources as needed, but just wanted to share that with you today. So if no questions, then I'd like to lay out next steps and then kind of reiterate the request. So pending Commissioner approval, our team will work and develop our program guidelines and policies. My PowerPoint summarizes things really well, but we need to take it to the next level and make it an official program with a policy. From there, we'll seek to launch an application and socialize that using our networks, and then ultimately launch the program after the application window closes and after the parking passes have been selected, administered, all that good stuff. Again, still targeting end of the calendar year. We'll provide an update to Commission as we proceed, especially if there's any delays. So those are next steps. The request from staff to Commission today is 2 motions, separate motions. The first would be to approve the resolution that's in your packet. The second motion, separate motion, would be to approve also the ordinance change to the fee schedule, which reflects the new rate of $40 an hour for low to moderate income individuals. If you have any questions about either of those, represented here today by Brandon Freeman, who's sitting in for Michael Frew. So.
Okay, thanks, Tim. Great presentation. Commissioners, questions or comments?
I want to acknowledge the Food and Beverage United for elevating this issue in our community and bringing it to us and having just really open lines of communication back and forth, and for advocating for their needs. I think that is fantastic. So thank you all, and for just being so easy to access, to have conversations with, and to hear from you. This is, as we know, a vital part of our local economy, that our food and beverage industry is vital, and the folks who work in the industry are vital. And so I want to acknowledge that and say thank you to you all for what you do to keep our food and beverage industry moving forward and for making it world-class across Buncombe County. And to Tim and to the rest of the staff for your hard work and your research in putting this proposal together. I feel like we've got a really great option in front of us tonight, so thank you. And I'm just really pleased to support this.
Yeah, I would just say ditto to that, but also just thanks to the staff. It's kind of an outside of the box idea. It's a little bit of an unusual initiative, and hopefully there's others like it that we can think up to support the community in a similar way. So thank you.
I'll just very briefly chime in to express my enthusiasm for this and excited to vote for it. And thank you all for the leadership at the staff level and at the union organizing level.
If there's no other comments, I'd like to move to approve the resolution establishing the Cox Avenue Affordable Parking Program.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Further comment on the motion? All right, well, I also just want to make a couple comments. Also, just thanks to the staff for really taking this idea seriously, digging into it, listening to the downtown businesses and listening to the downtown workers. We've got such a cool downtown. It's such a vital place. And a lot of creative business folks who opened up, businesses, but it's really the workers who kind of make all this stuff happen every day. None of this would happen without the people who show up and work hard and do a great job. And it's just a really special part of our city and part of our community. But in a lot of ways, it's like a more and more challenging place to make things like work, to make ends meet. And so I just really appreciate this as like a very practical thing that we can do to, to make it a more viable situation for our workforce. So just appreciate everyone's efforts to come together and explore this idea. And it seems really well thought through. I think the way we're launching it, is right on. I'm glad to hear that we are going to explore, if this goes well, if there's a lot of demand for it, which I expect probably there will be a wait list, probably this initial 150 spaces. There'll probably be a lot more folks interested in participating and applying than we do have spaces. So if that is the case, I'm glad we're going to explore the other facilities we have to see, like, could we do something there? Or do an expanded program at this one once we kind of see how many additional spaces we have available. But in particular, if we can create some other places, because, our downtown is, this is a great facility for parts of the downtown, but if you're kind of over on the other side of downtown, it'd be great to have some other facilities in other locations. And just the last detail I would just share, I mean, I very much support the idea that the passes need to belong to the individual downtown workers who would qualify for the program. But I hope as we work out the final details for this, we can, look for mechanisms to make it, very user-friendly for the workers, as well as for the businesses that, want to be supportive of their workers. If the businesses want to pay this additional cost for their workers who meet the criteria, I hope we can create a process whereby that's really easy to do. Because in an ideal world, my hope would be that we're providing this discounted option, and a lot of forward-looking businesses would want to say, hey, we will pay for this for the workers that we have who qualify for it. So I'm sure a lot of individual workers will also purchase these themselves, but it's still, over the course of a year, it's still almost $500. So it'd be great if businesses who are supportive end up actively participating in a robust way too, and don't put that cost on their workers. So anyway, just a few comments I would share as we work out some of the details, but I really appreciate everyone's efforts on this. Any other comments before we, yeah, Robert.
Only one is if 200 College Street was to come available and we do this in the future, say 6 months from now, would they be able to turn back in if 40 Cox is a little further distance away from them, that they could go ahead and apply for 200 and open a slot back up at 40?
Yeah, glad to look at that. These passes, there's no contract. You can discontinue at any time and apply for a new program. So that option will exist. So,
Ronnie, I
Yes, sir.
agree with you. When I was working, at the bank, we paid for some of our employees, downtown for parking because of the expense. But I'd like to really commend all of the other commissioners for what we're doing, because it might appear to some that we're losing money, but we're not, because it's the least we can do for the people who work downtown. And not only that, for security, because when I hear that some are walking to Cherry Street or Montfort Avenue, you're talking to some, I can relate to that because I've walked at both streets a lot coming up off Pearson Drive when I was younger. But I think this is something to commend the commissioners on, because we've got to help the workers who work in the downtown. And when you think about affordable housing or all the issues that we have, this is a little that we can do that will make a difference to our employees and to the people who work downtown. And I agree with you. I'd like to challenge the employers downtown to take us up on that and to pay for their employees. Because let's face it, they can write it off on their taxes. So let's go. But thanks.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Whitesides. All right, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, great. Thanks again, Tim, and appreciate everyone who came out tonight to,
and
well,
I'll
wait,
ma-
we do
I'll
have
make a-
motion number 2. Yep, thanks.
I'll make a motion to amend the 2023 fee schedule.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, great. All right, very good. Appreciate everyone coming out to speak on this item too, and for everyone's work on it. The last item under new business is a budget amendment for School Capital Fund Commission FY 2023 project recommendations. John Hudson is here to explain.
Good evening. We have a budget amendment for the School Capital Fund Commission for fiscal year 2023, the project recommendations. The School Capital Fund Commission held a meeting on October 10th and approved recommendations for the fiscal year 23 budget cycle in the amount of $31,185,440. For Asheville City Schools, the recommendation is $10,600,440 for 5 projects, one of which increases the existing project budget for the 2022 Herring School projects by $4,440,920 for heating and air conditioning repairs. Additionally, 18 projects are recommended for Buncombe County Schools with a total allocation of $20,585,000. Buncombe County will issue debt for these projects and pay for that debt using the designated Article 39 sales tax revenue for school capital projects.
All right, thanks, John. And these recommendations come from the School Capital Fund Commission, which Commissioner Wells and I serve on. And we had several different meetings to hear the proposals from each of the school districts and to review all the proposals. So, and then these were unanimously supported by the School Capital Fund Commission. So it continues to be a really great collaborative process between the different districts to put forward proposals and have the different groups, representatives from different groups weigh in on it. And there's a very, very long list of projects beyond these that there just wasn't enough funding to support at this time. This is basically the amount I think the Capital Commission felt, based on the finance team's analysis, that the debt service from the sales tax can comfortably support at this time.
And with that, I'll make a motion to approve the budget amendment.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Thanks, John. All right, we come to board appointments. Mr. Joyner.
Hello, Commission. Just wanted to touch bases on the TDA vacancy that we have. I think you have received the application or the list of applicants that have applied. I sent them out during the meeting, just quickly pulled them. So if we want to, we can do interviews before our next meeting or before our next briefing, if that is what the board wishes, and that would be the 15th of November.
Okay, and we have 5 applicants?
It looks like it may be 8. Once again, they haven't been vetted to make sure that they all fit that description, but these are just the new applicants that I pulled from the database while we were sitting in the meeting.
Okay.
So,
And the criteria is you need to own a short-term rental in Buncombe County.
or be a manager of.
Or be a manager of a short-term rental
Correct.
and live in Buncombe County.
Correct.
Okay. Well, that date sounds fine to me. I'd be supportive. I know we don't all have, I haven't actually looked at the email yet, but I'd be supportive of just interviewing all the applicants, assuming that they're vetted to meet that they meet the criteria.
Correct. And we would send a list of applicants of the ones that meet the criteria. We will do that vetting before that actual interview process. So probably within the next week, you'll receive that information.
Are there other meetings that day? We don't have affordable housing. Are there any other meetings before the 3 o'clock meeting?
I have one at 11, but that's just
Okay. Well, assuming we have like up to 8, we would need about an hour and a half to probably go through that. So we could start at, 2 o'clock would give us plenty of time, or 2:30 would probably work. It'd be a little bit tighter, but,
We still have the briefing.
sorry,
We
what?
have, we have the briefing that day.
Oh, I'm
at-
sorry.
at 3.
I meant to say 1 o'clock or 1:30, not 2 o'clock or 2:30. So, sorry. 1 hour earlier. Should we just start at 1 and make sure we have plenty of time to get through it? Okay,
All right, thank you.
okay. Yeah, okay. Hang on, I'm gonna make a note here. All right. We do have a need for a closed session, but let me read the announcements first. On November 15th at 3 p.m., the commissioners will hold their briefing meeting at 200 College Street, room 326 in downtown Asheville. On November 15th at 5 p.m., the commissioners will hold their regular meeting at 200 College Street, room 326 in downtown Asheville. Brandon, could you tell us the purpose of the closed session?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we need a motion and vote to go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-31811A4 to discuss the location or expansion of industries or other businesses in the area served by the public body, specifically to economic development incentives, and 143-31811A5 to establish or instruct staff or agents on the public body's negotiating position for an acquisition of real property.
Okay, is there a motion to go into closed session? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? When we come back out of closed session, we will not take any action. We'll simply adjourn the meeting.